In 1942, Warner Brothers rushed to cut a scene from Casablanca just 48 hours before its premiere. The footage showed Rick Blaine at his most brutal, coldly trying to profit, while a desperate man begged for his life to escape the Nazis. But this wasn't the only scene that disappeared. From dangerous cocktails to secret dealings, these are the forbidden moments from Casablanca that Hollywood buried for decades. The story of Casablanca starts in 1938, with a man named Murray Burnett, a school teacher from America. He and his wife went to Vienna to help their Jewish relatives get money out of Austria, which was under Nazi control. Later they visited a small town in France where they found a nightclub that left a big impression on Burnett. The club had a black pianist playing jazz for a mix of French people, Nazis, and refugees. That scene stuck with him. When Burnett got back to the US, he teamed up with a writer named Joan Allison. In the summer of 1940 they wrote a play called Everybody Comes to Rick's. The whole story took place in a cafe. Rick Blaine wasn't the mysterious man we know from the movie. Instead, he was a lawyer who had left his family behind. Ilsa, who was called Lois Meredith in the play, was very different too. She was bold and openly flirty, unlike the version of Ilsa in the movie. Even though the play had a strong anti-Nazi message, no one on Broadway wanted to produce it. One reason was that people worried it might seem like Lois had slept with Rick to get important letters of transit. The rejection turned out to be lucky because the play eventually ended up in the hands of Warner Brothers, setting the stage for what would become a legendary movie. In a strange twist of timing, the script for Everybody Comes to Rick's arrived at Warner Brothers the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Irene Diamond, a story editor at the studio, read it and thought it could make a great movie. She told producer Halby Wallace about it, calling it sophisticated hokum. Wallace saw the chance to make a film that would connect with the public, now deeply focused on the war. Warner Brothers bought the play for $20,000. This was an enormous amount of money for a script, especially one from two unknown writers. It was the most anyone had ever paid for an unproduced play at the time. The decision caught attention in Hollywood, with many wondering if it was worth it, but the timing was perfect. Warner Brothers was known for making socially important films, and with America now in the war, they saw an opportunity to make a movie that mattered. Spent a lot on the script. They didn't expect much from the movie. For Warner Brothers, it was just another project in a busy schedule. Humphrey Bogart, who played Rick, didn't think it was special either. It was one of 4 films he made in 1942, and he didn't take it very seriously. Ingrid Bergman, who played Ilsa, only accepted the role because she couldn't get a part in another movie she wanted. When filming Casablanca started on May 25, 1942, the script wasn't even finished, only the first part was ready. Writers were scrambling. Julius and Philip Epstein had finished their draft just 3 days before shooting, and Howard Koch was still working on his version. 2 weeks into filming, scenes were being written at night and rushed to the set in the morning. Things were so chaotic that by August the script had grown too long, 126 pages. The producer Halby Wallace demanded it be cut down. One scene where Rick and Ilsa meet at the cafe was rewritten 7 times in one day. This chaos also led to magic. Some of the film's best lines, like "Here's looking at you, kid," weren't even in the script. Humphrey Bogart made that one up while filming. The famous final line, "Lays, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship," wasn't added until later. Wallace thought of it after filming wrapped and paid Bogart $50,000 to come back and recorded a fortune back. Then the script changes confused everyone. Ingrid Bergman, who played Ilsa, often didn't know how to act in a scene. When she asked the director Michael Curtis what to do, he would shrug and say, "I don't know, we'll see." Even the ending wasn't decided. When they shot the airport scene, no one knew if Ilsa would leave with Rick or Victor Lowe. They filmed 3 different endings, one where she stays with Rick, one where she goes with Lowe, and one where Rick is killed. The crew voted on the ending, and the final decision came just before the movie premiered in November 1942. The confusion wasn't just for the big stars. S.C. Sackle, who played Carl the waiter, was so lost he started nervously wiggling his eyes. Later he joked he didn't even know if he was supposed to be a spy or just a clumsy waiter. Bergman especially was frustrated. She didn't know which man her character would choose, Rick or Lowe. The writers told her to play it in between, which only added to her stress. One day she came ready to shoot a love scene with Paul Henrade Lowe, but at the last minute they changed it into an argument with Bogart. She had to completely shift her emotions on the spot. Even her costumes reflected the uncertainty. For the airport scene she had 2 outfits ready: a glamorous fur coat if Elsa stayed with Rick, and a plain travel suit if she left with Lowe. She didn't know which to wear until right before filming. She later joked that she spent more time worrying about the coat than the script. Bogart also had doubts. He wasn't sure about being a romantic lead at 42. He thought he was too old and not handsome enough. "I don't know about this love stuff," he told producer Hal Wallace. Bogart was also nervous because he was known for playing gangsters, not lovers. During The first week of filming he drank heavily to calm down, causing Curtis to pause production for 2 days. Bogart's height was another problem. At 5 feet 8 inches ns he was shorter than Bergman, so he had to wear platform shoes or sit on cushions during certain scenes. Once he tripped over his platform shoes during a serious moment, and the whole crew burst out laughing. Michael Curtis, the director, added to the chaos his thick Hungarian accent caused constant misunderstandings. He once asked for a poodle on set. When someone brought him a dog he yelled, "Not a dog, a poodle." He meant puddle for a rain scene. Another time he told Bogart, "Make love to her with your hat on." Everyone was confused until he added, "You know, like an American." He also asked for more extras in one scene, shouting, "Bring in the empty people." No one knew what he meant until he explained he wanted background actors. Then something happened that changed everything. In November 1942, the Allied forces invaded French North Africa, and suddenly the name Casablanca was in the news everywhere. Warner Brothers rushed to finish the film to take advantage of the attention. Filming, which started in May 1942, wrapped up in just 71 days by August. That was incredibly fast for a major movie. The rush led to some clever tricks. The famous airport scene at the end wasn't shot at a real airport. It was filmed on a small sound stage. The crew used a wooden model of a plane and hired little people as extras to make the plane look bigger. They added heavy fog to hide the fake setup, which ended up making the scene look moody and iconic. However, everything was not going in the favor of production team. Joseph Breen, who was in charge of Hollywood's production code, was extremely strict about moral standards in films. He had major problems with Casablanca, and sent Warner Brothers a memo on December 3, 1941, listing 13 things he wanted changed. He was especially upset about anything related to sexual content or profanity. One of his first demands was to remove all hints that Rick Cafe had a brothel upstairs. He also insisted on changing Rick's line, "What in hell are you doing here?" to just "What are you doing here?" Breen even found the word broad too offensive and had it cut from the script. He didn't stop there. Breen focused on small moments like a scene where Captain Renault adjusts his tie before meeting a female visa applicant. Originally Renault said, "Send her in and turn on the light in my bedroom." Breen forced them to rewrite it as "Just send her in." Even Ingrid Bergman's costumes were a problem for him. He made sure her dresses showed less cleavage, saying women's bodies should be fully covered at all times. All these changes removed the sexual undertones that had been part of the original story. Rick and Ilsa's past relationship in Paris also had to be changed. In the original script it was clear they had an affair. One scene even showed them in bed together. Green said this was unacceptable and ordered all references to premarital affair removed. On January 6, 1942, he sent another memo saying there should be no suggestion of intimacy between Rick and Ilsa. As a result, flashback scenes were rewritten to rely on hints and subtle clues. For example, Rick's line, "I remember every detail. The Germans wore gray, you wore blue," became a coded reference to their romantic past. These changes forced the actors to show their feelings through glances, tone, and subtext. The result was a sense of tension and longing between Rick and Ilsa, making their story more emotional and impactful. While the censorship removed explicit content, it unintentionally made their chemistry even stronger. Captain Renault's character was also rewritten. Originally, he was openly corrupt and used his power to exploit desperate women, trading exit visas for sexual favors. In one deleted scene, Renault said to a young woman, "We have everything here from wines to exit visas," clearly hinting at his intentions. Breen found this unacceptable and sent a memo saying there could be no suggestion that forced women into such situations. This led to major changes in the script. For instance, a line where Renault said, "If there are any attractive women, send them to my office," was removed completely. The dialogue in Casablanca also went through many changes to meet Breen's strict rules. For example, the word damn was not allowed, which almost changed Rick's famous line, "Here's looking at you, kid," to "Here's good luck to you, kid." After a lot of back and forth, the original line stayed. Even small phrases faced scrutiny. The word lousy in the line, "You're becoming a lousy bartender," was changed to "You're becoming a very poor bartender." Another change was Sam's line, "Boss, ain't you going to bed?" which was rewritten to "Boss, ain't you going home?" to avoid any sexual implication. These edits, while frustrating for the filmmakers, had an interesting side effect. The restrictions forced the writers and actors to rely on implication and subtlety, which gave the film more depth. Moreover, there was another scene that never made it into the final movie. It showed Sasha the bartender tricking a German officer with a very strong drink. The scene happened at Rick's Cafe in 1941. The officer ordered a cocktail and bragged that he could handle anything. Sasha mixed a dangerous drink called the kamikaze cocktail. It had super strong rum, absinthe, and even gunpowder. Sasha glanced at Rick, who stayed quiet but seemed to approve. The officer drank it all at Once at first he looked proud, but then his face changed, his eyes rolled back, and he fell face first onto the bar with a loud crash. Everyone in the cafe went silent and stared. Rick watched from a distance. He barely smiled, and then went back to his calm self. Sasha, acting normal, wiped the bar clean around the unconscious officer Carl. The waiter made a joke saying, "I think the gentleman has found his water in a glass." The scene was funny, but the filmmakers decided to remove it. The movie was already long, and this scene made it even longer. It also delayed the introduction of Ilsa, one of the most important characters. Another reason was censorship. Back then movies couldn't show too much drinking or make fun of military officers. Adding gunpowder to a drink also seemed dangerous. The studio was worried the scene might cause problems in other countries, especially ones that were neutral during the war. Interestingly, Humphrey Bogart wanted the scene to stay. He thought it gave Rick more depth, showing how he quietly supported resistance efforts, but his opinion wasn't enough to keep it. When Casablanca premiered on November 26, 1942 in New York City, it wasn't because Warner Brothers thought it was an incredible movie. They decided to release it early because of a big event happening in the world. Just a few weeks earlier, on November 8, 1942, the Allies had started Operation Torch. This was a major invasion of French North Africa, including the city of Casablanca. Suddenly everyone was talking about that city, and the studio saw a chance to use the buzz to their advantage. The premiere was held at the Hollywood Theater on 51st Street. Tickets cost $220, which was expensive at the time. Strangely, the stars of the movie weren't there. Humphrey Bogart stayed in California because he was afraid of flying, and Ingrid Bergman was busy performing in a Broadway play called The Three Sisters. Instead, Warner Brothers executives and New York Social attended, creating some attention for the film, but it wasn't a huge splash yet. A few weeks later, on December 14, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt watched Casablanca at the White House. This happened just before he was set to meet Winston Churchill in the actual city of Casablanca for a war meeting. Roosevelt was moved by the movie, especially the powerful scene where the French anthem La Marais is sung. It said this scene even brought him to tears. The film's general release came on January 23, 1943, during the Casablanca conference where Roosevelt and Churchill were meeting. Warner Brothers timed this on purpose to keep the film connected to real-world events. Despite this clever marketing, the movie didn't start as a huge hit. It made about $3.7 million in its first run, which was good, but not amazing to compare the biggest movie of 1943, For Whom the Bell Tolls, earned $11 million. Casablanca ended up as the 7th highest grossing movie of the year. The budget for Casablanca was originally set at $950,000, but it went over budget and cost $1,390. One reason was the famous La Marais scene, which cost an extra $100,000 to film but became one of the movie's most iconic moments. However, the war caused problems for its release. Many theaters had shorter hours because of blackout rules, and fuel rationing made it hard for people to travel to the cinema. The Office of War Information also restricted how American films could be exported, limiting the movie's international reach. Critics liked the movie when it first came out, though they didn't see it as the classic it's considered today. Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman's performances got a lot of praise, and the themes of love, sacrifice, and standing up against tyranny felt very timely. A review in the New York Times called the movie thrilling, and said it made the spine tingle and the heart leap. In 1944, Casablanca shocked everyone by getting 8 Oscar nominations. Many thought it was just another wartime drama, but it ended up being recognized in major categories like Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor. For Humphrey Bogart, Bogart's nomination was a surprise because he wasn't sure about playing a romantic role. He was more famous for playing tough guys. Claude Rains also got a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, even though he was on screen for only 25 minutes. This showed how memorable his performance was. On March 2, 1944, at the Oscars, Casablanca won 3 big awards: Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. The script's win was impressive because it was written in chaos. The final scene wasn't even finished until the day before filming, leaving Ingrid Bergman unsure how the story would end. Michael Curtis, the director, also made history. This was his 4th nomination, and he finally won. Curtis was from Hungary and didn't speak English well, but he managed to create one of the most famous films ever. His win proved that his vision and leadership were key to the movie's success. Who had only seen the 1952 version, many were shocked to discover the true story and themes of the film, which directly addressed the horrors of Nazi Germany. This release sparked conversations in Germany about censorship history and the importance of confronting uncomfortable truths from the past. In 1988, Ted Turner stirred up a huge controversy by airing a colorized version of Casablanca on his TNT network. The film, originally a black and white masterpiece, was painstakingly colorized using cutting-edge technology. Turner's team of 67 colorists spent over 4,000 hours and 450,000 working on it using a computer system that applied thousands of shades of color. They focused on every detail, like the exact shade of Ingrid Bergman's eyes and the rich brown of Rick's bar. The idea was to make the film more appealing to younger viewers, but the changes sparked outrage among film lovers and critics. Turner didn't stop there. He released a colorized VHS version for $89.98 with bright packaging that boldly said "Now in Color." Rumors even spread that Turner destroyed the original negatives, but this wasn't true. Still, the idea that the black and white version could be lost fueled the uproar. The colorized version itself had some questionable choices. Rick's classic white jacket was changed to a strange powder blue, and the dark shadowy atmosphere of the original film was brightened, ruining the mood of many scenes. To make things worse, they introduced a glaring mistake. In one scene, Ilsa's dress suddenly changes color from green to blue between shots. These changes only made fans and critics angrier, as they felt the colorization ruined the film's essence. The reaction to the colorized Casablanca was overwhelmingly negative. Critics tore it apart. Roger Ebert famously called it one of the saddest days in the history of movies and compared it to drawing a mustache on the Mona Lisa. Audiences didn't embrace it either. The broadcast got disappointing ratings. Outside theaters, protesters held signs like "Ted Turner, enemy of cinema," and "Keep your crayons off Casablanca." The backlash became so intense that it reached Congress. In 1989, the U.S. House of Representatives held hearings on the issue. Woody Allen spoke passionately against colorization, calling it cultural butchery. Many film organizations, including the Directors Guild and the American Film Institute, condemned the practice. A group of directors, including Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola, even paid for full-page newspaper ads to denounce colorization as cultural vandalism. Stephen Bogart, the son of Humphrey Bogart, joined the fight. He wrote an open letter criticizing Turner, saying, "If you don't like old movies, don't buy them, but don't ruin them for everyone else." The backlash became so severe that Turner quietly stopped colorizing films. By 1990, the colorized Casablanca VHS was pulled from shelves and became a rare collector's item, with some copies selling for hundreds of dollars. The colorized version was never released on DVD or BAY and remains buried in history.